Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Yo Kids podcast. Before we get started, please be sure to check out the schedule for our Homeschool Yo Kids Expo 2025. We have 14 states on the schedule for next year, or this year rather, and couldn't be more excited. Make sure you visit our website, homeschoolyourkidsexpo.com, and be sure to check out some of our sponsors. One main one being Classical Conversations, that we have a wonderful representative from today. Let's welcome her. Tamara, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jay. I'm excited to be with you today. I'm Tamara Somerville. I am a sales manager with Classical Conversations. So I cover all of our communities in the Northeast from Maine to DC. I've been a homeschool mom since 2013 when my daughter was when she started the second grade. And she, this past spring, last spring, now we're in 2025. So she graduated last year. So she's officially a college student. Just sent her off last week to her second semester. And then my youngest is in the eighth grade. So I've got a few more years left in this homeschool rodeo.
Nice. Yes. But I mean, you've already completed one. So I know that felt great. And she's in college. So that's a success. So what prompted the journey to homeschooling?
Oh my goodness. It was crazy because listen, I don't know about all of your listeners, but maybe somebody will relate. I am not the person who thought they would be home with their kids.
All day.
Listen, my middle school, high school self wouldn't have even had kids. I was gonna be the rich auntie. If y'all watched Soul Food, I was gonna be Terry. I was gonna be the rich auntie that took care of all the other kids. Because I had money and time and no obligations. But I went and got married, had kids, and I'm gonna say this, and y'all don't judge me, and I know some of you will, but like I had my daughter, and I literally was like, okay, I'm gonna take the first year of her life off. Like I had a very generous program with my employer, and so I could take up to a certain amount of time paid, and I could take up to a year unpaid. So I took the whole first year of her life off. I was gonna put in my time, make sure she
Yes.
could walk, talk, communicate as much as she can. Like if anybody did anything to her, and I was gonna go back to work, but I was gonna put in my time to make sure all the things were checked off. And she literally walked the day before I returned to work. So I was
Oh,
going to it was crazy. But I thought I was done. Like, okay, I got a kid. I stayed home. I've nursed them. They can walk and talk. They still the potty training thing we weren't there yet. I tried, but didn't work. Went back to work, and 2 years into it, I called my husband on the phone crying, like,
oh,
I want to come home. I want to have another
oh.
baby, and I want to come home. And that crazy man said yes. Like, sure, absolutely, go ahead. And I'm like, dude,
Wait, no pushback.
more than
No.
50% of our income comes from me. That you just said yes way too quickly. How are we paying for all of this? Will we be poor? But we jumped in. Fortunately, I had the opportunity while I was home with her for a year. I found a whole lot of work from home opportunities. So I did have some income while I came home. Um, but homeschooling still wasn't on the radar. It's like, okay, I want to have another kid. And when my son came along, um, something just clicked in my head. Like my daughter was is still in private school. Um, but that summer before we started homeschooling, I decided, hey, you know what? Since I don't no longer have my big fancy job, my big fancy commission checks. Um, I'm going to do a summer at home. Instead of sending her to day camp, we're going to do a mommy and me camp. And I picked all these things to do. And her private school had she was going into the first grade, and they had a whole summer packet to do. So I figured, I can
Okay.
manage that. I mean, it's first grade. Um, so we had to plan both fun and formal like study time. After that summer, I thought I had so much fun with my kids,
Aw.
and we got so much done. I felt there was so much learning and um, just it was an ease to it. I was like, you know what? I know one person that homeschool. My husband's best friend from college. They homeschool, but they live in Georgia. I was like, let me call her up and see. Let's just try it out.
What state are
So
you, what state are you in?
I
Or
live in New
wasn't?
York.
And that was, you've been in New York the whole time?
Yes,
Okay.
we've homeschooled in New York this whole time, and I called her up and said, "Hey, I want to try this out." She sent me a CD, sent me some recordings to watch, listen to, and I called my husband and said, "Hey, what about homeschool?" He said, "Okay, sure." I was like, "Dude, you said yes way too quickly.
He loves you.
You know I
Oh
don't
my
know what I'm
God.
doing, right?"
He loves you. Yes. The trust is there though.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you
But
okay.
after our first year, I called up her private school and said, "Hey, can we come to the end of the year picnic?" And I just wanted to see, like, did she miss her friends? Like, did she want to go back? Because I wasn't sure. She was saying she was having fun. She was saying she wanted to still homeschool, but I wanted to see if I put her in a different environment, which she still wanted. We left that picnic. She's like, "Ma, that is their second trip all year. We go on
Oh,
trips every week. Like, we have way more fun." She's like, I'd like to maybe have more time with them, but no, I'll stick with homeschooling." And we stuck with it ever since. We're now, I'm not sure how we count this. We're either on year 11 or 12. I'm not quite sure. Because you got to count
right.
it like we did the year. So it's not like, I don't know. But
It's all
yeah,
well. Yes, no, that's wonderful. So it's just like a get, let me try this out. Let me try this out.
it was, yeah, jump in and figure it out and, hope it works.
And it did. It
It has.
has.
It has been glorious. And please don't misunderstand me. Like, there were tough times,
Of course.
um, but it has been so much fun. I've enjoyed the relationship we've built together. I've enjoyed the way we learn, and seeing the fruit of it now with her in college, and having the conversation. Like, I was out walking. Today's Monday, so Saturday, and she calls me up and we're talking about an assignment she has. She's at an HBCU, and
Oh.
they're reading the narrative of Frederick Douglass, and she was arguing that the professor's test answer was wrong.
Mm.
And she's like, "Ma, like, we read this book. Like, I'm reading it again, but I've read this book before. I know the answer." And I sent him an email and I love that she wasn't afraid to question her teacher.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
And even though he said no, but the answer I have is correct. She's like, "Well, actually, your question is worded incorrectly. Your questions don't your
Mm.
the answer format you've given and the question you asked don't match." And I just love that both that she was confident enough to know to know what she knows, but also willing to have engaging conversation with someone who's supposed to be above her. Um,
Superior. Yeah.
and she was accepting of his response, and she was willing to let it go. Like, okay, I've said my piece. I know what I know, and here's the actual problem that I recognize. And so I've got to do a better job at asking, what are you exactly looking for, and to state upfront, like, before I answer the question, it's like, "Hey, this question, the way it's worded, gives the impression this is what you're looking for, but it doesn't match the source material that you pulled the question from." And so
Indeed.
it's so much fun. This
Yes, I was
seeing
going to say all
her.
the skills in that one
Yes,
experience, like, that are displayed, like the critical thinking, the like stating your opinion, the correspondence of the communication, knowing, oh, let me email him because this ain't right. And being able to
right.
say, well, okay, well, we can agree to disagree, but maybe if you worded your question better, then, we would meet up on the same page. Because
Yeah.
I tell you, literature is something, because I was an English major. And so I took a lot of literature class and I had to do a lot of arguing myself, honey, because them professors, they be so dead set. Like, you knew him? Did you know Frederick Douglass? Because I don't
Right.
understand how my opinion of this or my perception of this literature is not as good as your perception of the literature. It's,
Correct.
yeah, like, let us get on the same page, sir. But I love that because a lot of people will just look at the grade and accept it and keep it moving.
Yeah, and it's I especially appreciate, when I made the switch, our second year of homeschooling to classical education. It wasn't something I was familiar with. Um, it it wasn't. It seemed like it was too simple. um, but I see. Like I said, is just in that conversation with my daughter this weekend. I see the skill set that was instilled, not just
Right.
not it wasn't just content she learned. It was how to engage with material as she's studying it, how to have that discussion with other people about what she studied. Um, One thing that came up, she in her email to her professor, she went back and quoted the chapter. Like she didn't just say, "Hey, I believe that you're wrong." Number one, don't start off that way. Um, but also, but we went back and say, based on this information, and quoted
Yes.
line for line,
Yes.
like I'm not gonna make this up or say what I think it says. Here's what it actually says. Now how are you interpreting that? So it wasn't just
Yes.
like my son and I have this constant discussion of, don't just come and tell me I'm wrong, come and show me why you think I'm wrong and where'd you get that information from.
Yes.
Like, what's your information based off of, and ask me about it. Don't just come in and say, oh, you're wrong. That argument doesn't go anywhere. So the skill set that classical education really instills, that it's the skills, not the content. The content's great. It's good to know things, but knowing how to acquire knowledge, for a future that we can't predict, that's the skill set I want them to walk away with.
Right. Yes. So let's talk curriculum. What fueled this, what guided you along the way? Because classical conversations, when did you introduce that?
So, my first year of homeschooling, mind you, I told you I'd left my job a few years ago, so our income was cut more than half. So I had no
Yes.
money to homeschool. So everything came for free at the library. In
Yes.
New York, you have to submit an education plan. You have to send it to the board of ed, the local board of ed. And my plan included things like, we're gonna watch Many Rivers to Cross, the documentary of Black history on Netflix, or I think it was either Netflix or YouTube. Not YouTube, Netflix or Amazon. As for physical activity, we're gonna go outside. And whatever free book I can get from the library, with the exception of math, I was doing an online program. And I thought I was doing a decent job. It's second grade. Like, how much can I screw up? Um,
Right.
but I had heard of classical conversations, from a few different people. Um, Again, no money. Didn't really quite understand what it was, but I was willing to hear it out. So at the end of my first year, I attended an information meeting. Um, I liked what I saw. I knew I would always, no matter what the curriculum was, I was pretty certain I'm not gonna like anybody's history program. Um, so, but I wanted to see, like, what are y'all gonna say about history,
Right.
particularly
Yes.
American history? Um, and so, one of the things I really appreciated was it built, like I talked about the skill set, but it built enough information for you to go and do research, not to form an opinion about people or places or events. So it's like, here's the date, here's the person, here's the event. You go do with what you want with it.
Nice.
And I appreciated that. I appreciated the timeline of history. um, but I remember the thing in particular that sold me on it. After I went to the information meeting, I went to a parent. Um, they call it a parent practicum. It's a way for it's a three at that time, it's a 3 day event to showcase to families, this is how we teach classically. Well, coming home on the Metro North, the event was in the city, and I live in Westchester County, just north of New York City, and I'm telling my daughter says to me, "Hey, ma, I learned the continents and the oceans." I'm like, "You already know the continents and the oceans." She said, "No, I don't." I said, "Wait a minute, sweetheart. We back in February, and this is like in May or June. I said, back in February, when I recognized you didn't know the continents and the oceans, I went on Pinterest and I pulled up all these things. Actually, we made a paper mache globe. We took my twister board and I permanently, Jay, I permanently defaced my twister board because I accidentally used a permanent marker on the, so my twister board still has continents and oceans written on it. I said, we did the word searches and we read the different stories. I said, we spent 2 weeks on the continents and the oceans. She goes, I don't remember any of that. Can I sing you the song?
Kids have a way of testing you in all types of ways. Cause what? Like you
I was
on 2
devastated.
weeks?
This plan, followed it, did all the things. I messed up my kitchen table with paper mache stuff. Like I don't like messing up my stuff. My twister board is permanently 10 years later. That thing still got marks on it. And you're gonna tell me I didn't teach this to you? But what I recognized was I was repeating the same thing I had done in school that I had experienced. I exposed her to information. She didn't learn the information. And so she sung me this
Mm.
song. Great. Okay. You want the phrase for the song. I'm still a little heated because my ego's bruised a bit. But that year, a year later, we started a CC community. And she taught it to the kids in the community because she still remembered the song.
Oh.
The following year, I taught the camp that she had learned that song in, and she
Oh,
taught it to all the kids. When my son started, she taught the song to my son. When she's drawing maps
that
and
was a
things,
good
she hears
song.
something else, she just jumps to the song. And what I realized was
Yes.
it gave her a way, it wasn't just the singing, it was the repetition. It was the repetition of
Of
the information. It
course.
wasn't just something she heard once, took a test on, and then pushed the information out of her brain. She kept reviewing it. Every time we read a book that mentioned one of the continents of the ocean, she would sing the song. Every time we referenced a story, every time we watched something on just in family fun time or family movie night, she's like, "Oh yeah, I know what that." She'd begin to ask questions like, "Well, which ocean does that sea connect with?" Um, or like, is there a border for these oceans? Like, where does the Pacific end and the Atlantic begin? Like, what is there a line in the on the map? Um, so it was the repetition that I saw where she kept pulling back to information that she had learned and brought it into the things she was currently studying. And I was like, that's what I want. That's what I wanted. That's what I want her to be able to do, not to just hear something, but to actually learn it and use it.
Yes. And where did the song come from? It came from Classical
Um,
Conversations?
yeah, well, that particular song wasn't created by CC. It was a resource that CC was using at the time. Um, but there are a number of what we call memory work pieces, particularly in for younger students that CC has a song for. The one thing you watch out with songs is that what you learn by song, you have to recall by song. And so it's why a lot of children,
Right.
when they learn the ABC song and they're doing something, putting something in alphabetical order, they've got to start from A to figure out where Q goes. Um, so
Yeah.
we don't do everything by song, but that idea of that constant repetition of information, and seeing that the thing I
Yeah.
memorized, the reason I learned the alphabet is because I'm going to constantly use it. I'm going to constantly need to refer to it. Um, it's why a lot of Alzheimer's and dementia patients, they may not remember their kids' names, but they remember the ABC song. It's because that's that constant recall.
Right.
Um, so that solidified it for me. It's like, okay, this makes sense. I can do that. And it gave me a way to present information. It took me a few years to
Mhm.
understand that even for me as a parent, that the content I was given, even in our CC curriculum, was meant to show me how to teach it. It wasn't meant to box me in to say this is the only thing you can teach. And
Yeah.
so I've used those same methods to teach Black history. I've used those same methods to teach about um, we do a classical artist study. I use those same methods to listen to the history of Black music. Um, when my daughter uh, started to fall in love with theater, we went through the history of theater. We created a timeline for theater. When Netflix just released recently the movie of the 688, the women in World War I who were sorting the mail,
Mm.
and she had already had that in her she had already
Um,
had them in her timeline from something else that we had done. And so she introduced, I remember one history class, she took some college credits before, while she was still in CC. Our program allows for that. And she introduced that to her college professor. She had already written a paper on them. So when the movie came out, she was one of the few people who was like, oh, I do know who those women are. um,
nice.
but it's that routine and that method of learning really helped us solidify how we approached material that I wanted them to learn. So it no longer became just here's something, we're going to talk about it, we're going to study it for a week or two, you're going to write a paper on it, and then we're going to move off of it. It's become something that consistently comes up back and forth into, oh, wait a minute, this event affected this event, these two things are connected. The Louisiana Purchase and the Haitian Revolution are not isolated events in two different places. They're connected. Um,
Mm.
and so I really appreciated that once I started to see, oh, wait a minute, this curriculum doesn't bind me to just this material. They just have to give me material to use to teach me the method. So
Indeed.
it's been quite the joy learning alongside them
Nice.
and seeing them utilize the information they watch, even in their free time. Like my son is, we had this whole conversation last night on dinosaurs and the naming of them, and we were trying to pick a background on the Roku channel, and we were
Mhm.
looking at insects. And he started talking about the parts of insects and how they're different, and the different how he knew certain ones were male. It just it like everything you've taught now becomes a subject for discussion, and
Yeah.
it's not a let's go grab the textbook and learn right now. It's just let's talk about the things we know
Oh,
and
yeah.
research and find out new things. And learning is relevant. So when we can pick what insect is going to go at the backdrop for our television.
Right. Because it's important to know the history of these insects and what each one offers. Like we want to make
Yes,
sure we got good illumination from a good
yes.
insect.
The
I
stag
love
beetle.
it.
That's what we're talking about.
The
Um,
stack. Okay.
the stag. He
Okay.
made a Lego form of a stag beetle and was trying to poke me with it. And I was like, what are we talking about? Stag what? And I thought stag deer. He like, no, the beetle. And then then the conversation just went 15 different places. We were from science to zoology to television. It went everywhere.
Yes. Does classical conversation cover all subjects?
Yes. So
Okay.
from our programs are broken up into uh, three main programs. The foundations program is, as it states, it's that beginning base knowledge, um, where we cover some subjects. People are like, why would I teach a 4 year old Latin? And it's because they're going to use that information later
Yeah.
on.
And that's the
Um,
root of most your
it's
English words. Like that's
correct.
where
You want to get, if you're interested in having your students score high on the SATs, ACTs, you teach them Latin. um, you're interested in them really becoming proficient and what's what I'm looking for. I'm just gonna say good at English grammar. You teach them grammar of a different language, because
Mhm.
we can hear in our own language, in our mother tongue, that something doesn't sound right. We can't always explain it, but when
Right.
we do it in different language, we have to take the time to actually understand why does this work. as opposed to it just, I know it doesn't, because something's wrong with it. Let me fix it. I know how to fix it, but I don't know what the rules are that I'm following that makes
Yeah.
me know how to fix it. Um, but we cover English, science, math, history. We do a timeline of history in addition to history, geography. We still teach the capitals and countries of the entire world. Um, uh, Latin. We do fine art. It's both science as the memory work piece and the actual labs and experiments. And then our essentials program is built onto foundations. So it would be an afternoon program where we're going back and reviewing the basics of math. If you can't do multiplication, everything past elementary school math is going to be difficult if you don't understand multiplication tables. Um, then and so we work a lot on math accuracy, math fluency. We want to make it quick because that those extra couple of seconds it takes to calculate the multiplication slows down math, and then it becomes, it's not that their kids aren't good at math anymore. They get frustrated because math takes 2 and 3 hours, and
Mhm.
nobody wants to spend 2 or 3 hours doing math.
No,
So
not
it's
at
not
all.
they can't do it; it just takes too long, and so they think they can't do it. But if we go back and fill in the foundation and learn the multiplication tables, then math goes a lot quicker. And learning the rules for math. So we focus a lot on that, and we focus a lot on writing skills and reading skills. So if our kids struggle to read, high school, middle school, and high school become hard because now they're reading textbooks, and if they don't understand the material in the textbook, they can't answer the questions, they don't pass the test, they can't articulate well what they have read, and what the conclusion and summarize what they have read. If they can't retell the story to you, it makes the every other subject difficult.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Everything becomes much more difficult because now it's not just we're talking about it, you've got to write about it. You've got to put in a 500-page essay. You've got to structure that essay. You've got to learn different styles of writing. And when those things, it's the skill set that our kids are often missing. We focus so much, and we focus so much on the content that they have to learn this, and this. They have to learn these subjects, and we skip the understanding of the skill set.
Yeah.
So we can get through the books. We can say we finished and covered the material, but they breezed through it. They didn't learn a whole lot of it or wrestle with it. Or when they got stuck, we took the time to just stay in that. And homeschooling affords that. Classical education makes that important. Those are some of the different,
Yeah.
and the high school, I skipped the high school level program, which is the challenge program. So after you've gotten all this, you know all this material you memorized when you were younger, you've built the skill set for reading and writing.
Foundations.
Now what do you do with it? What do you create with it? What can you contribute to the world as a result of it? So whether it's and this is the Tamara edition of homeschooling with classical education. Our kids in this day and age, I mean, we are meeting, on this virtual option. Our kids don't have to wait till they're
Yes, ma'am.
18. They have to wait till they get their working papers. They can create books. They can sell jewelry. They can publish material. They can create YouTube channels. They can create an income at whatever age they are now. So there's no need to wait until they graduate high school for them to be able to produce something in the world. And so
Yeah.
that's what we're going for.
I love that. Okay, so classical conversation, you all meet. Y'all meet virtually
Yes.
or you meet in person? Okay.
We meet, all of our communities are incarnate. So we get together in person to have discussion in person, um, to wrestle with ideas and information in person, to play games with the information that we know. It is all of our communities meet once a week. Um,
Okay.
the younger grades, uh, between 4 and 12, they will meet in the morning for foundations, usually between 9 and 12. I tell lunchtime is 12 to 1, but lunchtime is learning time. That's your time for you as a parent to engage with other parents and talk about
Yeah.
what's working, what's not working, what are you struggling with, what are you using, how are you doing it, do you sit at the table, do you have a dedicated class? Like, you ask all those questions. we try to make friends with for our kids. We need we need homeschool friends
Yes,
as
ma'am.
parents. We
Yes,
need somebody to
ma'am.
call when we're crying and in tears and we done locked ourselves in the room on timeout.
I know. I know
um,
people joke about the socialization for the kids and how much of a focus is that. It was like, no, they socializing. They good. It's the
yeah,
parents. The
yes,
parents that need
it can
some.
be
We
isolating.
need friends. Yes.
Yeah, you need to get out the house.
All right.
And have an adult conversation about something that's not an academic subject. Um,
Yes.
but so at lunchtime is important. Then in the afternoon is our essentials program till 3.
Uh,
So for a 9 to 12-year-old, they will be there from 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon, with that 1 hour break in between. Our 12 plus, because we go all the way through high school, um, they would they have class all day with one tutor, and we break up to about 55 minutes to 60 minutes of different subjects, and they have a half an hour break for lunch. But they are engaged, like they come to the table with excuse me, here's what I've done this week. Now let's
mm,
discuss it. What did you learn? What did you gain from it? How has your thinking changed? How do you see this character? How do you see the world as a result of what you've
yeah.
read? So it's not just, oh, I've read Uncle Tom's Cabin. How does it relate to right now? What are
Mm,
you seeing that's still relevant in your world, your 12-year-old, your 14-year-old world right now, based on that book? What have you currently been reading? What's on TV right now that reminds you of this? So we make excuse me, we make it relevant to their real life. And that
mm.
comes through discussion. It's like I'm gonna tell on myself, okay? So yes, this Christian woman who goes to church on a regular basis, I I had a steady date with Miss Olivia Pope on ABC on Thursdays, and
That's
and
which one?
scandal.
Because I scandal. Yes. Okay.
Yes, I was part of a regular Facebook scandal group. We had scandal watch parties because it wasn't just watch the episode at home by yourself. It's go find some people to discuss it. What just happened? What did they do? Why did she kill off this character? How did they figure that
Mm,
out? Did you see that outfit? Man, if I could put together an outfit like that. That coat, where can I buy a version of that coat
I
from?
love
It's the
that.
discussion in real life. It's the water cooler conversation when you come to work on Monday morning. Um, it's whatever popular show is on, whatever TikTok dance is on. It's the discussion you have about the thing
About it.
that
Yes.
makes it relevant. And so our kids get to come to class every week having finished their work, and now they're prepared to discuss, oh my gosh, like that character was crazy. Like who does that? My daughter at one point, she's like, I am tired of reading about white boys and their dogs. My son, however, was very much like, why do they keep killing these dogs? Like,
Oh.
why do the dogs keep dying? Why do we keep reading stories about dead dogs? Like, because we're a dog family. So she's like, aren't there any girls that have pets? And he's like, why do pets keep dying?
Mm.
But
Oh.
those conversations,
Yes.
come up. I remember one conversation um, where we were doing Greek and Roman gods, and we discovered Ariel and Percy Jackson are cousins.
What?
They're Poseidon and who's Zeus are brothers.
Oh wow.
And I
Yes.
mean, who sits around on a random weekend
I know.
and we literally had a movie marathon weekend. We watched all the Greek and Roman god movies we knew we could find, and that became the fun part of it. And what's interesting is that at the same time, I was homeschooling my niece,
Oh,
um,
nice.
and because our movie marathon was on the weekend, she wasn't part of that. And
Oh.
she made the comment, "Hey, you know what? You do all the fun things when I'm not here." And I realized, one, she's right, but that's because when she's there, we were focused on getting through the book work, getting through the things
Mm.
that her mom had entrusted me to make sure that she had learned. But
Oh
for my
yeah.
kids, it's like we've studied this. let's go over here. Let's read this book just because. Let's watch these movies just because. Let's go to this museum just because. It was because there was a connection that they already had to the material that made that trip, that book, that discussion, that movie relevant.
Yeah.
But we weren't sitting down with a textbook learning necessarily at that time. We used it as another form of discussion for the family, and it enhanced their learning. That's one of the things we learn to do as parents, so that homeschooling doesn't take over our life, but it
Yeah.
becomes our life.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, what does your schedule look like, your day to day?
It is much different now.
Of
Um,
course.
Only
Yeah.
having one child, and he's in eighth grade, so I don't do as much sit beside me and let's do some work
Yeah.
time. So I'll do both. When we first started, I tried the whole wake up at a certain time and we're going to do work until until a certain time. That did not work. My daughter will get up and start her work. My son will not. I and fighting over doing schoolwork was not the thing I wanted to do. So
Right.
I let them
No.
eventually I let them wake up when they wake up and you come start your work.
Yeah.
What I did give them though was they have dedicated time. Like I had between 11, I'm sorry, between 9 and 12, I am available. So
Mm,
I will do work with you during this time. If you want to get up at 10 o'clock, then you only have 10 to 12. And you
yes.
still have to eat in there and shower and brush your teeth and all that stuff. So it's even shorter time. So they've learned to adjust to when I was available. So they started to wake up earlier so that they could do work with me, because otherwise they have to
I
do it by
love that.
themselves. And I'm not available to come check your work after that. I'm available tomorrow at 9 o'clock. I'm
Yes.
done with you.
No, I love that. Yes, that's a
um,
whole lesson. Yes, parents, take
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Take that.
And now, with my son, he's up. He knows, like we plan out on Sunday, or in this case, because today's a holiday, we'll plan out today what his work schedule will be for the week. We'll work through things that I believe he's going to need support with, and so I'll plan out time. Like I will be working with you from this time to this time on this date on these days, but the rest is on you. Now, when I check your work, if it's not done, I'm going to hand you back your work and you're going to go back to schoolwork. I know it's 6 o'clock, but you didn't finish your work or it's not correct. So you still have work to do.
Mm,
Because now I work from home and I work full time. So I don't have as much flexibility to sit right beside him and do the work. But what I've seen with my daughter as a result of that type of planning, where I've given them a set amount of time where I'm available to work with them, is that she has learned to utilize when tutoring is available, when her teacher's office hours are available. So she's flexed her schedule to get her work done the way works best for her, but she's mindful of when I need support. Support is only available during these times. So I've got to work my schedule to accommodate their schedule. Um, and I can see how she's gotten support, she's gotten help, she's utilizing the chats and the office hours for her professor. With my son, he knows, hey, daddy's free between this time and this time, mommy's free between this time and this time. So hey, when you're break at 11, can you help me with Latin? On your break at 2, can you help me with my math? And so he's working to get that done. It's not perfect. I still end up sometimes 9 o'clock at night. He's like, I have a paper due tomorrow and it's not right. Can you help me? So those things still occur because, like I said, now because I'm working, I don't have as much time to say, oh, I'm available. I'm not. It's not that I'm cleaning the living room or vacuuming or doing laundry and I can jump in and help. I have a meeting. So it's changed, but talking with a friend of mine whose daughter is also now in college, like we've noticed the independence that homeschool affords, um, has helped shape my daughter's success, where for her daughter, she's struggling right now. And it's going to take a semester off because things have always been scripted for her in school. When you go to class and when your teachers are available, when homework is due, um, every day you have a different assignment. Whereas with homeschooling, particularly with our CC communities, because because we are meeting once a week, you've got to schedule out between this meeting and the next meeting. When are you going to do the work? How are you going to do the work? Because you've got to come back with 6 subjects of work completed, and you set the schedule yourself. So there's a lot. Again, I go back to that idea of focusing on the skills and not just the content.
Love that. Yeah, the independence is the big thing. Especially because that, like you said, you pull back, like okay, well at this age, yeah, they need me right beside them. They need me to be, hey, did you do this? Did you do that? But then as they progress, it's like, all right, well, you're responsible for this. So did you do
Right.
it? Oh, okay. Do you need me to look over it? Oh, okay. And we keep it moving. But as the time goes, especially by high school, it's like, oh, okay, you know what you got to do. Go ahead and do it.
Right.
Knock it out. Thank you
Yeah.
kindly.
And a big lesson I'm focused on with my son right now is when he comes to me with the questions, he usually going to get a question back. One of the things we teach in the classical model is this idea of um, using questions as a way to learn. What am I missing? What didn't I understand? What source am I using? So typically when he comes to me, he had a question about Latin this weekend, and I went back to his English grammar resources. And I said, okay, um, in Latin, the ending tells you the subject. So the verb ending is what is what tells you, who or what is doing this thing. And I said, well, which pronoun is being used here? And he's like, what do you? He got stuck for a moment, went back and said, okay, the question confirmation: who or what is doing the carrying? We know the word is carrying. Actually, he thought the word was gate, because porta in Latin is gate, porto is carry. So he thought it was gate. And I said, okay, but is gate of what part of speech is gate? It's like it's a noun. I said, well, what's the exercise you're doing? You're conjugating verbs. So
Verbs,
then
yeah.
you've got to look back at that. So that's number one, it's the wrong word. Number two, who is doing the carrying? It's like, I don't know. Well, how would you know? I don't know. Okay, what material do you already have that outlines the Latin pronouns and their endings? He's like, oh, let me go back to my chart. Got the chart. Okay, which person, like what person is being used? What? Okay, first, second, or third person. We go back to the verb chart. What do we know? What are the attributes of every verb? And so constantly going back and asking him to reference material he does know, to find out the thing that he doesn't know, is the more important thing I wanted him to learn in that moment, as opposed to, I don't understand how to do this Latin work.
Yes, and then you're also making him find the answer to the question he came to you with. So it's like,
Exactly.
okay, well, I'm gonna assist you, but I'm gonna assist you to the answer. Like you gonna get
Correct.
there. I love that. Yes.
Correct. And it takes it. Please hear me. Like it's much simpler to say that's the wrong word,
Right. Yes.
but it's much more productive for them to realize, number one, if I went back to my instructions, read the instructions, kids, please. It's so
Right.
much of their questions is, I didn't read the instructions. He had not only did not read the instructions, he didn't even read the lesson. He just jumped straight to the questions and started answering them,
Trying to get it done.
and then
Sound like
realized,
an eighth grader. Look, that sounds like
yeah,
eighth grade world. Yes.
he's like, I'm being efficient. No, sweetheart, you can't skip those steps. You can't just throw water and soap on the dishes and say they're washed. That's not how you wash dishes. Um, but that conversation took us about 45 minutes
Mm.
to keep him from going to the default of, I don't know.
I don't know.
Or I know I
Yes.
taught it to you. And even if you don't remember, what resource do you have? Because I cannot be always available to you.
Yes.
And even
Yes.
if you go on
Yes.
the internet, you still have to know what you're searching for to find it. Like right now, I'm just before this conversation, I'm trying to search for something on in Excel, but I'm using the wrong term, so it's not finding the right answer. So I'm still trying to figure out what is it that I'm asking Excel to do. I've got to
Yeah.
ask myself the question. The same way most lessons at the end of the chapter will ask you a series of questions, we've got to learn to ask ourselves those questions to
Yeah.
find the answers and to find out what it is that we don't know, or what resource can we acquire that knowledge from. But even that idea of I don't know, getting him into that conversation of skip the I don't know part. That's unproductive. Let's
Yeah.
just go with I'm trying to find how to discover the translation, or the correct translation. Just ask the question, what is it that you need to know? Skip the saying I don't know is declarative. It doesn't give you nothing. It's just a statement of fact. And I can just say, okay, you don't know it. But even that
Wow.
little chunk of going back, it's that grammar stage. I try not to use the official um, uh, pedagogical terms, grammar, dialectic, and rhetoric, because those things go over our head.
Yeah.
But going back to that foundation, what do you know? Now, what are you missing? That discussion, whether it's with someone else, with ourselves, with the material, then what can I produce? What do I know? What am I missing? How do I find it out? What can I produce? That's the classical model. And the reality is, although it's for many of us, it's new, or it seems a bit different. It's what we do as parents. We do it all the time. Um, I tell parents this in our conferences. Every child, every mom, from the time we find out we're pregnant, we start talking to our babies. We start telling them, and the time they show up, once they're here in the world, this is your dad, this is grandma, grandpa. We just start naming a bunch of stuff. We don't explain anything. Never sit down and say how brothers and sisters are brothers and sisters, or what parents do. We don't explain the role or the history of parenting or grandparents or connections or genes. We don't do none of that. This is where you live. This is your sock. This is a cup. This is a nipple. We just start naming stuff. We're just giving them knowledge.
Yeah.
Somehow in our brains when we went to school, we now think that knowledge needs to come with an explanation, but it doesn't in real life. It's just where we
Mm.
live. Um, then later on, through discussion, you learn that there's a difference between my family and my friends. John is my friend. Jay is my cousin.
Mhm.
And there is a difference. And we learn that through our experiences, through our conversations, through our questioning. Later on, we then move on to, hey, Ma, I think I want to make John family.
Oh, yes. Oh.
It's a natural progression. First,
Yeah.
you just get the information, and it's information overload with no explanation, no content, no textbook assigned. Just here's a bunch of things to know: right, left, up, down, orange, blue, circle, shade, triangle, house, home, forest, lake. We just learn stuff.
Yeah.
Later on, we begin to understand, what does that stuff do? What is that stuff for? Like, I remember someone, this is a little crude, but someone would say, when I had my son, we were nursing, someone would ask me, how long are you going to be nursing? I said, well, listen, as long as I'm nursing him, my child, we're okay. If I try to nurse you, then you can have a problem. Like, I'm trying
AKA
to
mind your
understand, why do
business.
you
Look,
have a
look.
problem with me feeding my child? But that's the thing. We get to a point of understanding, and a lot of it helps. This is one thing that'll help for any homeschooler, of what, regardless of curriculum you're using. A big portion, because we still do a lot of grammar stage, that just basic knowledge. If we still do a lot of that in our modern schools and in our current homeschools, a lot of us still do that stage of learning where we skip and we've pulled away from that questioning stage, and we want them to jump to just produce something, but we never give them the time to really wrestle with stuff. And here's the kicker: a lot of our kids, particularly as they hit those teenage years, they are questioning for understanding. They are looking to try to understand, wait a minute, we are friends, your friend and your friend and their kids, y'all pretty much do similar things, but their curfew is 11 o'clock and mine's at 9. Now, how are we so similar, but we have very different curfews? And they're trying to understand that. They're trying to understand, well, wait a minute. Um, her shirt only stops here. You require my shirt to stop down here. Why?
That's my 11-year-old.
Yeah.
But
My
why?
brother can be out, till this time, but I got to be in the house by this time. Like, help me understand. And it can be as even simpler. Potatoes are a vegetable. You want me to eat vegetables? Why can't I have French fries with every meal?
Or potato chips.
Right. They're trying to understand. Now the problem is their questions sound disrespectful. Let's be clear. Why I gotta do that? Wrong tone. Wrong tone. You ask with that tone. The answer you receive may not have anything to do with the question you asked.
You better tell it. Yeah.
We've got to teach them how to ask a question. And the issue is sometimes if we've pulled our kids out of school, the kid who keeps raising their hand and keeps asking questions, we got to move on. Like, we don't have time for this. We got to let other people talk. Well, they're not talking.
Exactly. And I still have
They
questions.
don't have questions. I've got questions. We even have memes about it. Why are you asking all these questions? We are being taught to shut up and take it.
Yeah.
You can't ask questions. And even as parents, I'm guilty of this, of saying, just do what I told you to do. I ain't got time for your questions. And now there are legitimate times when it's like, okay, we can have a discussion, but not right now. Right now, I need you to obey me. We'll
Yes.
deal
Just
with the discussion
listen.
later. We've got to get back that discussion. And one of the things I think the classical model reinforces is that ability for us to ask questions, even of authority. Not because I'm disrespecting you, because I don't understand and I want to understand. I want to understand not just why E equals MC squared, but I want to understand, why can't I stay out past 11? I want to understand, why can't I wear makeup? I want to understand, why can't I dye my hair purple? I want to understand, why can't I wear what I want to wear because I saw it on some video? I want to understand, why I can't curse at you. Because if we focus on the skill set of them being able to ask questions, it's translatable.
Yes.
There are questions about vegetables and about curfew and about bedtime and about food that they eat and about the friends that they keep is relatable to their questions about literature, their questions about science, their questions about origins. It's relatable. The skill set is important, not just the content.
Yes.
And we are so stuck with getting our kids content so that they can go get a job somewhere. We want them to be able to produce content like you're doing with the podcast and with the conference. Produce something and give it to the world that they begin to pay you for the information that you know, because you'll be the one asking the questions, getting the understanding, and now you're the resource for everybody else. That's the classical model. Don't just give them content. Give them the time to wrestle with that content so they can create something of their own that's valuable to the world. That's what we've got to get back to. And we have a lot of great curriculum out there. And the classical conversation doesn't own the classical model. We happen to have a method that helps equip parents to use it. We didn't invent it, it's been there all along. It's been how all of human history is learned, with the exception of these last 150 years, where we decided, okay, now we need to make sure you know this stuff so that you can go get this job because we need these things fulfilled. We need people to
Mhm.
fulfill these roles in society. So you go learn this. Um, but when we look back, even in our early history as a nation, um, people didn't have one job. They did multiple things over the course of their lifetime. Um, and the reason they could jump back and forth is because they knew how to learn something. They knew how to acquire knowledge. And we are producing children that are walking into a world that we don't know what it's going to look like. With
Indeed.
AI, with the technology that we're producing, we have no clue what jobs will still be available, what career paths will still be open. So we've got to prepare them for a world that we've never seen. So
Indeed.
we can't say what skills and tools they'll need to know. If we teach them how to gain any skill or any tool, then they can function in the world.
Yeah.
They can be the leaders in our culture and in our society, and especially for our kids. They need that. They need to, and we have it kind of built into our culture. We know how to adapt. We know how to fit
Always.
into um, situations that don't mimic our home life, situations that don't mimic our family structures. We already have some of that. Um, so it's and I'm doing the research now to see like the the vanguards of Black culture, how they were educated, why um, Frederick Douglass can write so prolifically, why Martin Luther
Yeah.
King, his rhetoric touched so many people, why Phyllis Wheatley's words resonated. Um, and I'm coming to include a majority of them were educated classically.
Mm.
And so that part's been, it's been fun as a parent to see that. It's been a joy to see the results with my kids. Um, tell you one other story with my daughter. I am a field trip maniac. I love field trips. Um, and I've learned to focus our field trips on things we've actually studied. My first year homeschooling, we went to the Met in New York City. We ran around. I said we were doing ancient cultures. So we did ancient China, ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Babylon. And so we ran around the Met all day looking at stuff because I said, you know, because I thought I'd focused enough. And
Mm.
I only went through those wings of the museum. We didn't go to anything else. Well, the year following, my daughter wrote a paper on Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh in Egypt, who was King Tut's great grandmother. And we realized the Met has an entire room dedicated to her.
Oh, wow.
So we go back to the Met, we go to the Temple of Dendor, we kind of look around the temple, and then we spend the almost 4 or 5 hours in this one room.
Mm.
Come home, got all these pictures when I still had a physical camera. I take out my SD card, I put it into my computer, and it says, do you want to download, excuse me, do you want to download these 200 plus pictures again? And I'm like, again? I just did this trip. Well, a year ago, I was in that room and took a bunch of pictures of things I didn't know what it was. I could have gone back to my pictures, but I just randomly, oh, that's cute, that's nice, you know, that's interesting. No, no relationship to it.
Mm.
Um, it has, but I taught my kids like why we do certain trips, why we do them certain ways, and why we limit the things that we do on that trip. Like we've gone to the Bronx Zoo and we only went to the alligator section. That's it. Spent the whole day in the alligator section. Um, but now I watch her develop. Like she's in college and going on taking her classmates and her college friends on field trips.
Nice.
There's a museum, civil rights museum, right next to the school. Most of the kids had never seen it. The rec, she took her two friends the other day to the rec center. It's like, have you not been to the rec center? Like, do you not know what's in there? Took them to a different library. Um, this is like there's another place to study, greater resources, less crowded.
Life off campus. Yes,
Yeah, those things. Watching them do that is so much fun.
I'm sure. Yes, the
So that's what I want to
foundation.
give to. That's what I want to give to families. You know that ease of the classical model, that skill set, for writing, for reading, for research, for engaging in conversation. Even if you live on social media, you still got it. If you don't answer your comment section, don't talk to the people, they gonna leave your channel. They want some feedback.
Indeed. Yes,
They
they
want some
do.
engagement. We've got to be able to talk to people.
Yes, yes. Very, very important skill set. And that's why it's dope. Classical conversation in itself is a dope name. It's a dope concept
Yeah.
because you know, like, yes, let's sit and talk. I just
Yeah.
want to talk. Like this conversation can go on and on. And I have
Yes.
other questions, but I'm like, okay, we already reached that hour so quickly. And I respect your time. So I will not, but I do have one.
Yes.
How do you self-care?
Oh, thank you for that. I so appreciate you asking that particular question. Um, my mornings are mine.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone needs to get up at 5 o'clock. I do, but that time is where I am researching. I am. That is my time for prayer, my time for reflection, my time for journaling. That is my time to get outside and go for a walk, to think, to breathe, to have ideas. I have a notebook that I keep in. It's a small spiral notebook. I keep in every bag, that I walk around with. If I can't find that, I've got my note section on my phone, just to jot down ideas. It's a place where I dream. Um, but that time, I guard that time. Um, my family's usually asleep. My husband may be up, but he's in a different part of the house. Um, but that I notice that when I skip that time,
Mm,
that's when I start to feel rushed, and I'm
mm,
running on empty. Um, there aren't any new ways. I stop looking at. I stop filling my own cup up. Lisa Nichols says, you can't pour from an empty cup, and so that I've learned is far more valuable than the time I spend with my kids trying to teach them something. If I'm not learning, if I'm not being built up and being refreshed, there's nothing I have left to give them. And it will feel like a burden to teach them. One of the things, probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned, along this journey. I remember that year, I mentioned that second year when I'd gone back to the CC Parent Practicum and I led the camp where my daughter had learned that Confidence in Ocean song. And I came home after that camp and I just got in my bed. I'm not an artist. I don't consider myself an artist. I'm very creative, but I never considered myself an artist, a visual artist in particular. And I sat in my bed and I started drawing the continent of Africa. I just spent 3 days teaching these 6-year-olds how to draw different parts of Africa. I just sat there and started drawing. My kids, one by one, came into my room. What you doing, Ma? I'm drawing Africa. Okay, well, can I draw with you? Sure. My son, who now draws regularly, but before he's like, I can't draw. I said, well, I'll get you a page you can color. And we sat there for like 2 hours, not necessarily talking about anything, just sat there coloring, drawing, just together.
yeah.
Um, but I realize when they see me engaged in something, that's when they start to engage in stuff. When I'm watching a video and they're like, "Oh, what are we watching?" "Oh, I'm watching this documentary on such and such." "Oh, can I watch that with you?" "Sure." When I'm going to the museums, and I'll go without them. They're like, "Oh, you going to the museum? What are you going to see?" "Oh, can I come with you?" "Sure, it's free."
Right.
Absolutely.
Smart.
But the more they see me engaged, and I see it with my husband too. It took a little while, but he started getting up at 5 o'clock. He started having that
Mm,
time. He started going out to the gym more consistently. Um, my walking time, my kids, I tried to get them to go walk and they were like, oh, this is pain. My daughter was literally in tears the first time. She's like, her legs were burning up. I kid you not, Jay. And my husband had dress shoes on. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Um, but now they all like walking is part of their time. They'll go out. My husband, my daughter, all the people, my son. um, he takes an extra long time with the dog. He's like, oh, we're just out walking. I was just thinking, I had an idea for this. Um, now I see them taking time for themselves. What are you doing? I'm just reading a book. What are you doing? Oh, I was drawing. What are you doing? Oh, I was just thinking. Also, just jotting down some ideas. Um, I see where when I make education important, when I make self care important, when I make learning important, because they love me, because they are looking at what I'm doing, because they want to be like me, they'll do it too.
I
And it's
love
no
that.
longer, I call it like ninja learning. Like you throwing out those stars, those ninja stars, and it just comes back. It just comes back without the yelling and the screaming. Um, but it's from the time that I spend building myself up and caring for myself and doing something that brings me joy that I start to
Yes,
see it in them. So
yes.
thank you for that.
Oh,
Every parent, we need that.
yes, 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 ma'am. I
Homeschooling
always
or
want
not,
parents to
we need that.
priority, not an option.
Yeah,
Priority, not an option. Definitely. And before I let you go, no more questions, but I need three things from three
sure.
little tips that you would like to leave homeschool families with. Three things that hey, if you don't take nothing else from this is what you need.
um, One goes back to the self-care. Make time to do something you enjoy. And I'm not just talking about like drink water, be healthy. It's just something that you enjoy doing, whether it is painting, riding your bike, walking, whatever it is. Find something you enjoy and do it. The second thing is um, if there's a skill that you can obtain, learn to ask good questions of your kids. What did you do today is not a good question. What did you enjoy most about your day, wherever they went? What's one thing that you found most interesting? What's something that you would want to do again? Who did you enjoy being with today? What conversation um, was most engaging to you today? Asking those deeper questions will get so much more out of our communication with our kids and our family. So time do something, do spend time doing something you enjoy at minimum weekly. If you can do it daily, God bless you, but at minimum weekly. um, Learn to ask good questions. Um, and three, I'd have to focus more on the skill set and not the content. If the purpose is logical thinking with math and your child is struggling to write, then take the writing part away from them and let them do it orally. Focus on the skill set, not the content. A lot of times, particularly with our boys, a lot of boys get frustrated because they don't read well, they don't write well. But if you're doing math, yes, it can include reading and writing, but it doesn't have to. It can be an oral. It can be a conversation.
Yeah.
Um, that would be the thing. Engage more in conversation about what they're learning, not just try to look for the outcome of what they learned, the test, the paper. Have a discussion with them about what they're learning. So those will be
Indeed.
my three.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all of this. This has been amazing. I knew the time was gonna fly. I didn't know it was gonna fly that fast, but I knew it was gonna fly. But I appreciate you so, so much. Classical Conversations, please check them out. You will hear me talk about them for the majority of the season of uh, podcast hosting or podcast hosting, because they are a major sponsor of the Homeschool Yo Kids Expo this year. And I appreciate you so, so much, so, so much for that. Um, But yeah, I'm excited. It's so much more to say, but like I said, I'm trying to respect her time because she has things to do. Okay, she's a homeschool mom. All
It is a
right.
holiday.
Oh yeah, it is a holiday today. I know. Oh yeah, look, a lot going on today actually. I forget. But yes, no, parents, grow the skill set, allow your child to be independent, allow them to do things that you don't think they're capable of because they're way more capable than you allow them to be. I know we want our babies to be our babies forever, but just remember that they will have to live in the world without you eventually. Pray, no time soon, but we don't know, and you really don't know what the world or life will bring in general. So just make sure they're equipped. That's all I always focus on. Make sure they're equipped. Make sure they're able to take care of themselves and not have to depend on anyone to take care of them or pour into them. Teach them all the skills that you know or wish that someone had taught you growing up. Focus on that end. But just pour into them and let them stand. Let them stand on their own because they got it. I promise they do. And then, in the meantime, in between time, homeschool your kids.
There you go.